Black elder saves abused child. Years later, a woman knocks on his door. Beginning, the broken child and the quiet savior. The year was 2481, and the colony of New Arcadia hung like a jewel above the gas giant Casper 9, a habitat carved from steel and human desperation. Down in the lowest decks, Deck 79, air recyclers groaned, lights flickered, and humanity's discarded souls lived in permanent twilight. Elder Jonah Becky had lived here for over 30 years. His skin was dark and deeply lined, his voice like low thunder when he spoke. Most knew him only as a black elder, a quiet man who fixed broken air filters, and spoke kindly to those who no longer remember kindness. He wasn't from New Arcadia. Once, long ago, Jonah had been an engineer in the Terran fleet before the accident that killed his son and took half his hearing. He'd left the stars behind, retreating into the underbelly of the colony to live out his years in peace, or penance. But peace had a way of avoiding Deck 79. One night, as storms rumbled through Casper's endless clouds, Jonah heard a sound that pierced a humming silence. A child crying. The sound was sharp, desperate, and not from any of his neighbors. He followed it through the narrow corridors, past rusted bulkheads and flickering pipes, until he reached a sealed maintenance room. The door was welded shut. "Hello," Jonah called, pressing his ear to the metal. The sobbing continued, soft and muffled. He grabbed his torch, pried the door open, and found a small girl, maybe 6 years old, curled in the corner beside a malfunctioning drone. Her arms were bruised. Her lip was split. Her clothes, government-issued rags, were marked with the insignia of the child labor program. Hey, it's all right," Jonah said, kneeling slowly. The girl flinched back like a wounded animal. "No hurt," she whispered. Jonah lowered his hands. "No, child, never again." He wrapped her in his old coat and took her home. He fed her what little he had, nutrient stew, warm water, and waited until she stopped trembling. Her name, she told him between sobs, was Tali. She had been taken from an orphan block to work in recycling, breaking down old tech for parts. But her supervisor beat her when she broke a servo. Jonah's eyes darkened. The corporate overseers didn't care about the underdecks. Children like Tali disappeared every month, sold into the machinery of survival. He'd seen it too many times. But not this time. Jonah hid Tali. He built her a false ID tag, gave her a new name, Tali Becky, and taught her to read, fix circuits, and navigate the underdeck tunnels. As the months passed, her laughter returned. She'd follow him to work, small hands smeared with grease, learning how to repair drones and vent systems. She'd ask about the stars, about what it was like to live above the clouds, and Jonah would smile sadly. One day, he'd say, "When the sky forgives us." For 3 years, they lived in that fragile peace. But nothing in New Arcadia stayed hidden for long. Middle, the separation. It began with a raid. Corporate security, Neurodyne enforcement, stormed the lower decks, searching for unregistered miners. Jonah had heard the boots before they reached his block. He grabbed Tali's hand, pushing her toward the maintenance shafts. "Go," he whispered. "Crawl through to the upper conduits. Don't stop until you reach Deck 50. There's a woman named Lyra there. She owes me a favor." "But what about you?" Tali's eyes were wide, terrified. "I'll draw them off." He placed a hand on her cheek. "Whatever happens, you survive. Promise me." "I promise," she said, her small voice cracking. Jonah turned, sealing the hatch behind her just as the soldiers burst in. They demanded to know where the unregistered child was. Jonah said nothing. When they threatened him, he still stayed silent. When they broke his hand, he only stared back with eyes that burned like coals. They left him bleeding but alive. Tali was gone. Safe for now. For years afterward, Jonah never saw her again. He aged, alone, tending to the dying vents and forgotten people of the underdeck. Sometimes he'd catch a glimpse of a small girl in his dreams, running through corridors of light, calling his name. He'd wake up and whisper, "Still alive? Little one, you better still be alive." Decades passed. The colony changed. Neurodyne collapsed. A new government, the Arcadian Alliance, rose, promising equality between surface and underdeck citizens. But Jonah no longer believed in promises. He was an old man now, living quietly in a small cabin overlooking the reactor glow. His hands shook when he worked. The people still came to him for repairs, for advice, for wisdom. But his eyes always drifted toward the upper levels, wondering what became of the child he'd saved. The knock on the door. One evening, as the lights dimmed for rest cycle, Jonah heard a knock on his door. It startled him. Nobody knocked anymore. Most people just called through the intercom. "Who is it?" he called. A woman's voice answered. "You don't know me, sir, but I think you once saved my life." Jonah froze. Slowly, he opened the door. The woman standing there wore an Alliance fleet uniform, crisp and silver blue, with a patch that read Commander T. Leary. Her skin was bronze, her eyes sharp, her hair braided tight against her skull. She looked strong, confident, but her gaze softened when she saw him. "Elder Becky?" she asked quietly. Jonah blinked. The name, the eyes, it couldn't be. "Tali," he whispered. She smiled, tears glinting. "Hello, Elder." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Jonah laughed, a deep, broken laugh, and pulled her into an embrace. "You grew tall," he said. You grew old, she teased, wiping her tears. He gestured her inside. Tell me everything. She did. After the raid, she'd reached Deck 50 and found Lyra. The woman smuggled her out with a group of rebels headed for the surface. Tali had joined the resistance, learned to fight, and later, when the Alliance rose, she'd become one of its youngest commanders. She'd helped shut down Neurodyne's child labor networks and free the remaining underdeck miners. I looked for you, she said, voice trembling. But they told me you were dead. I nearly was, Jonah replied, smiling faintly. Takes more than that to kill me. Tali looked around his small workshop, rusted tools, flickering lights, a half-built drone on the table. You're still fixing things. It's what I do. Then her face grew serious. Elder, I didn't just come to thank you. I came to ask for your help. Jonah raised an eyebrow. Help? From an old man? From a man who taught me how to survive. She took out a data chip and slid it across the table. A hologram flickered to life. Schematics, sensor readings, energy traces. Jonah's eyes widened. It was a map of the Neurodyne core vault, deep beneath the colony's foundation. We found something down there, she said. Something old. Pre-human. Jonah frowned. Alien? Maybe, but it's active and it's calling. The hologram shifted, revealing a pulse, a rhythmic vibration like a heartbeat. Jonah stared. That frequency is not a signal. It's a distress call. Tali nodded. We think it's what Neurodyne was experimenting with. Whatever they found, it's waking up, and if we don't contain it, it could tear New Arcadia apart. Jonah sighed. And you need someone who knows the old colony systems. And someone I trust. He chuckled softly. Flattery will get you everywhere. Commander. The descent. They went down together, through forgotten shafts and sealed corridors, descending lower than Jonah had ever gone. Even below the underdecks, where the walls sweated condensation and the metal screamed under pressure. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. Machinery pulsing like veins, energy conduits that glowed faintly green, and whispers echoing through the vents. At last, they reached a vast chamber. In its center hovered a crystalline sphere, suspended in magnetic fields. It throbbed with light. That's it, Tali whispered. Jonah approached slowly. The energy shimmered, forming shapes, patterns, almost words. He felt something in his chest, an ache that wasn't fear but recognition. It's alive, he said. The light pulsed brighter, and a voice filled the chamber, not through the air, but directly in their minds. Human, designate. You came back. Tali staggered. Did you hear that? Jonah nodded grimly. Yes. The entity continued. You are the one who freed the child. You showed mercy. I remember. Jonah's breath caught. Were you? A fragment of what your makers feared. You called me the core. They called me the first light. Jonah realized then Neurodyne hadn't built this. They'd found it. An alien intelligence buried deep within the colony structure, older than any human design. Why did they keep you here? Tali asked. To learn. To harness. They fed me children's thoughts, their pain, their fear. You freed one. Her echo saved me. Tali's eyes filled with tears. My echo. Yes. Your compassion was a key. You broke the loop. The light brightened, the whole chamber trembling. Alarms blared. Jonah shouted. It's destabilizing. We need to shut it down. No, Tali said, voice fierce. It's trying to communicate. The core's light flared again. You taught the child mercy. She taught me hope. Now I will give you my gift. The light engulfed them, ending the legacy of mercy. When the brightness faded, the chamber was silent. The core was gone, dissolved into faint motes of light that drifted upward like fireflies. The power readings were stable. The crisis was over. Jonah lay on the floor, breathing heavily. Still alive, he muttered. Tali helped him sit up. What would it mean? A gift? He smiled faintly. Maybe it meant this moment. Maybe it meant the colony survives. When they returned to the surface, reports came flooding in. Energy restored to all decks. Pollution systems repaired. The underdeck finally connected to the main grid. For the first time in 2 centuries, light reached Deck 79. Weeks later, Jonah sat by his window, watching the sun rise over Casper's swirling clouds. Tali visited often, sometimes bringing children from the lower decks to meet the elder who fixed the sky. You changed everything, she told him one day. Jonah shook his head. No, we did. You turned survival into compassion. You remember what they forgot. She smiled. The core said I had an echo. Maybe that echo was you. He laughed softly. Then I did something right. That night, Jonah drifted into sleep, listening to hum of the newly awakened colony. He dreamed of stars, of laughter, of a little girl running through light. In his dream, someone was singing. A soft, distant melody carried through space. When dawn came, Tali knocked on his door as usual. He didn't answer. She found him sitting by the window, peaceful, a small smile frozen on his face. In his lap lay a data chip. On it, a single message in his handwriting. The sky forgave us, little one. Keep it shining. Tali wept quietly, then placed her hand on his shoulder. Rest easy, elder. Your echo lives on. Outside, light flooded Deck 79, and far above, in orbit around Casper 9, a new beacon pulsed, a rhythmic signal broadcasting across the stars. A message of mercy, hope, and the legacy of a man who once saved a child.